to the Weekly Bioanalysis, a KCAS podcast.
Hello and welcome to the 30th episode of the Weekly Bioanalysis. My name is John Perkins. I'm a Senior Scientific Advisor for all things related to LCMS technologies. I've been with KCAS a little over a year, but I've been in Bioanalytical for around 26 years. I'm here with my co-host, Dominic Guarino.
Hello, my name is Dominic Guarino, and likewise, I'm a Senior Scientific Advisor at KCAS for all things related to ligand binding assays, biomarkers, and flow cytometry. I've been with KCAS for a little over 7.5 years, but I've been in the bioanalytical space for a little over 26 years now.
As mentioned, this is our 30th episode of the podcast, and to mark this milestone, we have a couple of guests. Chris Frankovic and Jeremy Rochford, who Dominic and I work with closely as part of the business development team at KCAS. Would you like to introduce yourselves, Chris?
Hi, thanks for having me on. Chris Frankovic, business development for KCAS. I live and work in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been with the company about 15 years. And thanks for having me on.
And Jeremy?
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Rochford. Thanks for having me on, guys. Looking forward to it. I am the business development director for KCAS, covering the Southeast region.
Today's podcast, as always, is brought to you by KCAS Bioanalytical and Biomarker Services. KCAS is a bioanalytical laboratory located in Kansas City, Kansas, serving the pharmaceutical and biotech industries for over 40 years now. As one of the senior scientific advisors at KCAS, I'm available to answer any questions you may have regarding this podcast or any of KCAS's services. We're thrilled to have you listening again. As mentioned, this will be our 30th week recording the podcast. If you're interested, the other episodes can be found at kcsbio.com. We can also follow us on Twitter at @TheWeeklyBio and at KCSBio. We started this podcast because the current business environment prevents face-to-face communication. We're broadcasting from completely different places, and this week is particularly interesting. I'm in upstate New York, Dominic is in Kansas City, Chris is in the San Francisco Bay Area, Jeremy is in Indianapolis, and our other Jeremy, our producer, is in Missouri. This weekly podcast gives us the chance to connect with all of you, and we hope it is a chance for you to get to know us too. Even more, it's a chance for you to get to know KCAS and the services we provide. As with our previous podcasts, we'll start with a review of latest news and resources, and then focus on a topic of our choosing before discussing any feedback we've had from you. We're constantly looking for topics, and we'd be happy to discuss something that you want us to cover. Then we'll wrap up and give you a little teaser for next week, letting you know what is coming in the future. So again, we're thrilled to have you here, and we're looking forward to a fun episode today. Here's today's agenda and podcast topic before we jump into the news and resources section. Dominic.
Yeah, what an exciting podcast we have. This is podcast number 30, John, another milestone for us. Today's main portion will be a nice conversation with two of our business development directors. So what we're going to talk about is what is the business development role at KCAS. Then we'll dive into the impact of COVID. And we're going to talk about how you can't travel and no face-to-face and how some of the challenges to building a relationship. Then we'll move on to discuss things like networking events and how they've been impacted by COVID and what it was like before and what we're doing now. And then we'll shift gears and we'll talk a little bit about the impact it's having on our clients and how they're doing business. And then additionally, we'll talk about how the BD directors normally work from home, and now everybody's home with them and the impact of that. And then we'll round it out by talking about 2020 virtual conferences and what the return on investment was for those. And then we'll talk about 2021 conferences and travel. So a jam-packed episode today. We're so excited to have you here for podcast number 30. But John, let's just jump right into the news and notes. We'll kick us off with some COVID discussions.
Let's start off with what looks like good news. This week, today, the FDA is meeting to discuss data from the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine, and they actually published a meeting briefing ahead of time talking about some of that data. And this vaccine is really looking like it's the real deal. They basically said it looks highly effective protection against COVID-19 in a broad population of individuals across demographic characteristics. So it's showing effectiveness in patients 65 and older. It's actually in some people showing efficacy 10 days after the first shot, even though this was designed to be a two-shot deal. The Pfizer, I think it was the head of the vaccine group, said they showed 52% efficacy 10 days after a single shot. So this vaccine's been approved in the UK, where it's starting to roll out, and there's a couple of caveats to that. Canada's also approved it, and it looks likely that the FDA will move to approve emergency use authorization as well.
Yep, this is great news, John. Right, this is what we're all hoping would be the outcome when we started on this warp speed vaccine stuff, and this is coming to fruition. I mean, John, there's even some great stats in here around how the people over the age of 65 are still around 94% or 94.7% efficacy, and even in underlying conditions. So those, and they don't elaborate on what those underlying conditions are, but those are people who are considered most at risk for COVID-19. 95% efficacy. This is a potent vaccine, John, and appears to be very safe. I mean, this is great news.
Yeah, so talking about the UK, people are saying, so the first person vaccinated, she's going to be a Trivial Pursuit answer for years to come. And sadly, I'm just Googling, but I can't find her name. But the second person vaccinated was William Shakespeare. Actually, Margaret Keenan was the first person vaccinated. Second person was William Shakespeare. So you couldn't get any more cliched coming from the UK. One thing that has come out of the UK is that the people who are prone to allergies, or really prone to allergies, have gone into anaphylactic shock. So they are recommending some caution with if you're prone to allergic reactions to things. Given those couple of instances, they were able to help those people recover. But it's one thing that didn't come out in the trial, but actually came out as the vaccines were rolled out. But there's still this is emphasis that side effects are they're slightly increased in the dosed arm versus the placebo, but still the safety profile is judged to be good. So yeah, it really is good news on this front.
Yeah, and I want to address that allergy concern.
Sure.
I mean, that's not just for this vaccine, right? So anybody that has,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking, technically it's called atopic dermatitis is a form of it, where you have IgE levels that are like tenfold higher than the normal person. If you're incredibly susceptible to allergies, any sort of vaccine is always taken with some caution, and this is not new to you. I think what people are maybe starting to get more aware of is I have allergies and don't know it, maybe, right? So I think that's some of it, myself included. I certainly have seasonal allergies, or they feel like it, but I've never gone to a doctor and had it addressed, right? So I don't think that I saw that I read about what you're referring to, John, and I don't want any of our listeners with any sort of allergy to really get overly concerned with it. You still have to take the normal precautions as you would getting a flu vaccine. I don't think it has any other side effects than a normal vaccine. And so for me, it's completely safe, and I would roll my sleeve up and take this vaccine.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's one of those things that because there's so much heightened awareness around the vaccines, etc., this is what prompts it. This is not unusual, but because all eyes are on it, any little detail is being highlighted.
Yeah, it's making me. It's a bright point in medical history for this vaccine and vaccines, not just this one, all of them, to be coming to the general public at such a high efficacy, high degree of safety, and basically in the last year. So really amazing.
So just to follow up on that. So Pfizer BioNTech's hearing is today. Moderna's the other RNA front runner. The hearing on that is next week. And again, we've seen good efficacy numbers on that one too.
Yeah, and John, those are the mRNA ones, right? And the more traditional protein-based ones are 3 months away. So anybody that, and I've been getting a lot of like personal questions from friends around the safety of the mRNA vaccines. I don't have issue with it, but people have this notion that like it's, getting incorporated into your DNA and going to make you, I don't know, mind control. I don't know what goes through people's heads with what they're taking, but it's like, and I don't know if you've heard this one, John. There's a monitoring device in the vaccine. I've heard the government wants to follow you. It's like, oh my goodness, people, we're not that advanced. This is not Star Trek. That's just
Well,
hogwash.
this has been out there for months, and yeah, it's sort of there was quite a few memes on Twitter on I think was it Monday or Tuesday, whenever the first vaccination took place in the UK of Bill Gates trying to control Margaret Keenan from a distance, etc.
Well,
I'm
these are all
sorry, I
things.
can't help but
These are all
laugh.
things
Maybe
that,
there's someone controlling you and I, John, and we just don't know it.
One of which was particularly good, where it was showing someone in a wheelchair spinning round and round on the spot, and it's like Bill saying, "I'm slowly getting the hang of getting her under control." So
Nice. All right. Well, with that, let's move on to our next topic related to COVID. So, AstraZeneca publishes interim vaccine data in the Lancet. Nice, the British journal there. It reveals 10 hospitalizations, 1 death, and pivotal control arm. So, John, on the surface that sounds kind of bad, but I don't know.
but
Is it bad?
But again, I think the issues are in the control arm. So actually, it's doing what it's supposed to do. I think the concern with AstraZeneca is we've seen different efficacy numbers. They're saying 70% because there was actually there was an error made in dosing where there was actually a small group were administered with low dose, high dose, where it should have been high dose, high dose, and that actually showed higher efficacy. So there's going to be another phase 3 to look at that low dose, high dose approach. And I think it's sort of rattled regulators that because it's sort of it's not going as expected. You've got these other vaccines that are actually showing that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I just think there's some concerns out there. I think you got the markets are saying, well, is this going to be as can it compete against Pfizer, Moderna? But it has things in its favor. It's got low cost. It's also got that stability at room temperature, so distribution will be easier. So it may not compete directly with Pfizer, Moderna. It may just access a completely different population,
Yeah.
but it just ensures rollout to a wider range of people.
This was a really interesting read, John. So, you're right about why. So at the surface, it's like, well, why is AstraZeneca still getting the spotlight? You just nailed it. It has that supply chain issue. Does not have a supply chain issue, as does the Moderna and the Pfizer, and then also the cost, right? So this is definitely something that could potentially be more global than the other vaccines that are maybe more targeted towards, let's just call them resource rich nations. So that's I think an important thing to emphasize around why there are still many vaccines out there. The other is I think this particular one, it's gotten this how do I say it? It seems like it's getting some bad PR, so to speak.
Sure.
Although I do think it has. This is part of the Oxford team as well. Do I have that right?
Yep, it's Oxford and AstraZeneca.
Yeah. So, but they have that rich history there. So this is. I want to emphasize they have a more historic success in vaccines than the mRNA one. So it's a fun, to me. I call it fun, but it's an exciting race. And I would not count out the AstraZeneca one, and I would still welcome the opportunity to take it. And then, John, really, let the other part that I want to drive at here is, what did you say? They actually made a mistake in dosing. That happens. To the general public, that sounds scary. It's not scary. That type of stuff, trust me, in the other vaccines that are out there, they're having the same sort of complications or errors. We're all human, so I don't want anyone to think, "Oh my God, I'm not taking that." Because
this is what happens when you're across multiple sites and dealing with tens of thousands of patients. I mean, it's all part of clinical trials. I mean, honestly, we talk about its efficacy isn't as high as the Moderna and the Pfizer, but when we were talking before having any vaccine coming to this point, FDA were willing to accept 50% efficacy, and EMA had talked about being willing to accept 40% efficacy. So the AstraZeneca is above that. This again. It's not a dud. It's just there's a few teething problems along the way. And
That's
actually,
that was a good way to say it. It's not a dud, and there's some teething problems.
yeah, and one thing I do want to mention is that unlike the Pfizer and the Moderna, where there's real excitement, AstraZeneca obviously submitted to India for potential emergency use, but it's reported that India, for the moment, have said that they're not approving it because they don't see sufficient safety and efficacy data yet. I'm sure it will get there. It's just this is a slower development compared to the Pfizer, Moderna, but it's still lightning speed compared to anything we've seen in the past. So you still got to say that there's still things are moving forward, and kudos to what they've done so far.
Yeah, and I can't imagine why India is reportedly rejecting the AstraZeneca. But what it does, John, it leads nicely into our next
I think it's
news article, right?
I think it's important that it says if India are saying there's insufficient safety and efficacy data, yes, I'm sure long term they'll change their mind on that. But it tells you that the process is being followed across the globe to get these vaccines to market. And if they do make it to market, they've gone through that rigorous approval approach that we're used to. And if the regulators say they're safe and effective, they're safe and effective. Nothing's been rushed here. We're following our processes. We're just doing it much more like we talked about last week. We're doing many things in parallel to make it move quicker. It's not cutting corners. So I think that's a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that should give confidence to everybody out there that it's being evaluated properly and it's going through the proper channels. And there's occasional setbacks, but if something's going to make it into a doctor's office here or anywhere for that matter, it's going to be safe. John, let's round out our COVID here. The last article will be on the UAE claims Sinopharma vaccine 86% effective, but details are scant, right? So interesting. The Sinopharma is a Chinese-based company out of Beijing, and they're claiming 86% with their inactivated jab, right? Sounds like it's an attenuated one.
Yeah, so it's similar to the Russian one where they cited high efficacy, and we've got no reason to doubt that. There's been no published data to say that here's what we're basing it on. I mean, it's it was a 31,000 volunteer study, but there's no detail about how many ended up contracting the virus between the placebo arm and the treated arm. There's no safety data. There's nothing about side effects, and that's what's missing. It would be good to hear more about these, but right now, to just say it's efficacious to the extent doesn't tell you a great deal. But
no, and that it doesn't mean it's not safe and effective, like you said, but it makes it a little. You'd like to see more, and good for Sinopharma for taking on the. For producing a vaccine and doing it so quickly, and it appears to be effective. And again, this is all good stuff. We certainly want the rest of the world to be vaccinated so that if we are traveling, we're not going to worry about this. So, whether it's a Pfizer vaccine or a Sinopharma, shouldn't matter to anybody. It's all about getting us back to normalcy, which maybe we'll save another podcast for what normalcy will be after all this. Like,
if
we don't shake each other's hands, right?
If it does what it's intended to do, I'm interested in taking it.
Yeah. So, John, we're going to move off of COVID and go into some non-COVID news. Some of my favorites coming together, right? We got CRISPR-edited CAR T cells show enhanced activation against leukemia in mice. So this one's great, right? We're taking CRISPR technology, which let me refresh what that means. It's clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats. Basically, it's I'm going to short it down to like DNA sequences that they insert into your genome to help you. And they've combined that along the CRISPR technology along with Novartis's CAR T cell therapy, Chimera, which is the first approved CAR T cell in really something that's helping to save people's lives, in particular in the leukemia and lymphoma space. So, John, they're kind of getting them together, and what they've done is they've engineered using the CRISPR-Cas9 to eliminate something called CD5. And
Yeah.
CD5 is really a master switch on a lot of T cells. So by doing this, they can kind of target the therapy. And I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, just a little bit in the background. It's basically Kimria's approved, but it can it can treat a lot of people for induced long-term remission for some forms of leukemia and lymphoma, but many patients either relapse or don't respond at all, and it's trying to address that particular issue. And I introduced this news item so I could let you talk as long as you
No,
wanted about it.
we don't have to spend too much time on it, but just realize that it's, again, non-COVID related stuff. There is some amazing science going on where we've got this CAR T cells, which have been a focus and a hot topic for a good 10 years. They came out of UPenn. And then CRISPRs have hit the market maybe 2 to 3 years ago, and already they're kind of getting together. Again, that synergy, it's fantastic to see. Looks like they found some good mouse model data, and TBD. We'll leave it at that. This is one of those things we're going to continue to look at. And, a couple other things I'm going to add. Carl June weighed in, who is really somebody I idolize to some degree. And he's looking at this as a good, as you said, long-term strategy for enhancing CAR T cells. That's a good way to say it. So,
Yeah, I mean, and this is a mouse model about looking at the different leukemias. T cell leukemia, 50% of animals were cured. I don't know how many animals they looked at. And then in CD19 plus B cell leukemia, the majority of those mice were in remission once CD5 was taken from the CTL019 CAR T cells, which I'm sure means more to you than me. But it still talks about the potential efficacy here, and the plan is to move forward in this. And they hope to get into phase 1 with this next year. So
That's
it could be very interesting watching see where this goes.
If you can't cure it in a mouse, you certainly can't cure it in a person. So this is a
Absolutely.
great first step. And one other thing I want to add is it came out of the virtual ASH meeting, which is the American Society of Hematology. Fabulous meeting, and quite a few articles. I'm happy you chose this one, but there was a lot coming out of ASH, which again is, either way, it's good to see science coming out of it, and some sense of, I don't know if normalcy is the right word, but it's always exciting to read about the latest and greatest from ASH. Well, we got one more, John, right?
Got two more, but it's interesting because they're different angles, and it's with vaccines being so much in the news. It's important to emphasize there's a lot of other work being done on vaccines, and this one is actually beating Merck. Pfizer gets priority review as the first Prevnar follow-up heads to the FDA. Prevnar is the pneumococcal vaccine. It's active against 13 different types of or 13 different strains of pathogenic pneumococcal bacteria. And this, we talked about the Merck rival, which was being developed to be active against 15 strains. This Pfizer one is active. The follow-ups actually active against 20, and it's been accepted by the FDA and granted priority review. And in terms of this is a big money maker for Pfizer, because when we talked about the top 20 revenue producing drugs, Prevnar was up there because it's a $6 billion a year vaccine. So there's a big demand for this.
Well, it's pneumococcal vaccines. Everybody should take one over the age of, I think, 60 or 50 or whatever it is. And then it's an annual thing. So it's no doubt exactly, for a vaccine maker, this is what you want. But more importantly, it's really protecting people. Let's face it. These things are highly effective. I think it's great that the Prevnar 13 from Pfizer, Merck counted with 15, and then now Pfizer's coming with 20. You got to love the competitive space here. But there is a late, as they say in this article, this Vaxcyte is going to compete against these behemoths because they got their own pneumococcal vaccine coming out with a bunch of funding. So it's good to see a little more of a small biotech that Vaxcyte is going to maybe make a splash here in time and something to look for. But great stuff. I love seeing more vaccines approved. Don't mind the competitive spirit of it, because in the end, it's the person getting the vaccine that is now going to have 20 protective epitopes versus, say, 13 or 15.
Yeah, and so continuing on a similar theme, and we touch on investments occasionally, but this one I picked up. It's Boehringer Ingelheim bags a contract manufacturer adding muscles for cancer vaccine oncolytic virus programs. So Boehringer, obviously all the large pharma have interests in vaccine development and production, but Boehringer isn't a name that we've heard at all associated with COVID. But they are very focused on obviously oncology programs, particularly in the cancer vaccine area. And so this was they purchased a manufacturer called Labour Dr. Merck and Collagen, which is just down the road from Boehringer's Biberach headquarters, to basically up their capacity for manufacture of vaccines and similar agents. So it just tells you where the emphasis of large pharma are. They might not be. I mean, they're not all going after COVID because there's so many other things that vaccines could help with.
Yeah, nice move by Boehringer Ingelheim here, because they've acquired a couple oncolytic viruses and cancer vaccine programs through Vera Therapeutics and AMAL Therapeutics, who they purchased. So to protect the franchise, what do? They went out and bought this, I don't know, Labor, Dr. Merck, and Collagen. God bless the Germans with their company names there. But that allows them to manufacture those products. So really a good strategic move. I hope that's clear. They've got these vaccine programs, and now they need manufacturing, so they went out and purchased the manufacturing for it. So really a nice move, and non-COVID related. So it's all stuff that's, again, we want to make sure. I know there's a lot of focus on COVID, but cancer is not taking time off because of COVID, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
So, John, I think that kind of rounds out our news and notes. And so we got the main portion today. We've got a couple guests. Our guests, as you know, are both directors in our business development team. We've got Chris Frankovic and Jeremy Rochford here. And so the main portion is to just kind of go over like what is going on as a BD rep during a pandemic, basically. So, guys, maybe if you want to first give yourselves a little bit of a elaborate on your role at KCS, and maybe I'm going to pick on Chris first to give her roles, and then Jeremy, you can chime in, and then we'll jump into the impact COVID has had on you guys.
Yeah, and a little bit of
Great.
background about each of you would be good too, just so people get to know you.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Hi, Chris Frankovic, business development for KCAS. And, I've been with the company 15 years and have seen a lot of growth over that time. And certainly this year has been very different from any other year that I've been doing this job. But I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and just happy to be talking to you guys today.
Great. Jeremy, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Been with KCAS for about a year and a half. Been in the industry for about 15 years, but I worked in the CMC space and then for a clinical operations CRO prior to that. I live in the Midwest. I live in Indianapolis, and I cover our southeast region for KCAS. And like I said, excited to be with you guys.
Thanks for that, guys. And I'll share it. Look, our business development team is more than just like sales. It's true business development. And these guys are out there. They know our product. They understand our science. And they're the first people to interact with our clients. So both of them have been tremendous assets to our organization. And daily, they're probing John and I to learn more about our product. So let's jump right in, guys. I think I'm going to pick on Jeremy first, because he's first-time caller, long-time listener, first-time caller. I like that, Jeremy.
Shall we start with what the role is? Let's let you talk through what the role of BD is, because we have that as a first topic here.
Oh, sure. Guys, you want to elaborate a little bit more about your business development roles? I think I feel like I touched on it a little bit, but go ahead and give us a little more flavor about like what your day-to-day activities are as a BD rep.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as far as developing business, our part of our job is to make sure as many people within our given region, know who KCAS is, what our capabilities are, and ultimately how we can help support their efforts in drug development from a bioanalytical and biomarker standpoint. So, my job is to constantly be kind of out there learning what's going on, who's developing what, how we can help them, and trying to bring new clients to the table, expand our relationships with our existing accounts and existing relationships.
Chris, you want to add? Chris, you want to add something?
Well, yeah, so certainly like a big, huge part of that is meeting with people. And so maybe to kind of roll into what, the impact of COVID has had on us, it's like no surprise, right? Like we're not meeting with friends and family, like you're not traveling, and no customers want to meet with us. And like, frankly, I mean, the feeling's a bit mutual. um, just out of good safety, and California is pretty progressive on the front end of that. So the general consensus around here is like, no thanks, let's not meet, let's meet virtually via video conference. So
Yeah, I think that, for me specifically, I've got one of our largest kind of, I guess, regions. The Southeast region for us encompasses several states. So in the pre-COVID normal world, I spend quite a bit of time on the road, and so not being able to travel and not be able to get in front of existing customers, new customers, has definitely been a challenge, especially for trying to build relationships with new customers and bring on new accounts, because it's hard to kind of build those relationships just over email or even teleconference. It's something special about being able to sit across the table from somebody and really understand what they need, and have them feel comfortable and confident about what we bring to the table to support their efforts. And it's just harder to do without being able to travel and be with people.
Yeah,
yeah,
that face to face is essential, and one thing that I don't know we've really talked about, but Dominic and I both spent a lot of time on the road with all the business development directors, and where you got the two different perspectives, where you got the science and the business talking face to face to a customer, it really helps give a well-rounded picture of of KCS to a prospective customer, and it's more difficult to get in the flow of that in phone calls, even on Zoom calls where you got visuals. It makes it a much tougher proposition.
Sure.
yeah. In this business, a lot of the projects that we do are not just like one-off, shots in the just really quick projects. They're long standing. We might work with a customer for years and years and years, and you don't hire somebody to work to outsource your program like that, unless you have confidence in them. And so as like a service provider, that confidence is built on trust, and like establishing trust in what I call like 1D or two-dimensional exchanges is just really challenging. You really need that three-dimensional face-to-face. Humans are really social creatures, like, so we need that tactile three-dimensional interaction to really build that confidence and trust, and know that we can really do the job that they need us to do, and not just it's not just um, you know buying a sandwich. They're really sharing. This is their baby. We're oftentimes taking their really hard work, their baby, and working with that program for years. So.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so I think you face the same challenges as every BD director. Do you have a little bit, without giving too much of your secret sauce away, but how are you overcoming some of that face to face? Is there some other? I heard teams. Was there anything? What else is kind of helping you with that sort of relationship building? And maybe it's like Dom, I don't know, but I'm just wondering if there's something you've done, because I know you're both like, I would say you're both exceptional BD. I would say that about all of our BD, but you had behaviors and activities that you were doing that are significantly altered. Can you share a little bit around maybe some of what that's doing to you? Maybe Jeremy, you can go first in terms of before it was like, hey, I want to talk to someone, then I want to go visit with them. How's it going now?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I think having Microsoft Teams, be able to actually still be face to face with somebody, I still think allows you to have that to some degree, but when you're trying to get in front of new customers, new prospects, it's definitely been a challenge. So, trying to be kind of hypersensitive to different target companies, target accounts, their pipeline, and if they've had noteworthy milestones that can be kind of celebrated or something. So just trying to be creative with not just every other kind of BD or salesperson out there that references unprecedented times. It's trying to really find something that kind of strikes a chord with them and shows them that we have a genuine interest in helping them out and being part of their program.
Yeah, Chris, a
Yeah,
little something from you. Go
definitely.
ahead.
Yeah, we've definitely had to get a little bit more creative. I mean, look, this podcast is just that, right? Like, we can't go out there and, like I would go to a lot of local conferences. PBSS well, they're international, but they have a big presence here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And, I would have, a small table, but really it's people are drawn there because of the science and the good community, the good, strong scientific community that we have here. The organizers would put on really good topics, and you'd go and meet people, and I would be at those meetings about once a month, and be able to see people face to face. You never know, like we can send out a marketing message before that, and people would maybe come because of that marketing message, but most of them are just there for the science, right? And so just not being able to go there and see that, almost spontaneous, it's not really spontaneous, but it's in some ways it is a bit spontaneous, seeing those customers that you might not have had a working relationship with yet, but it can grow into that. So
Well,
we just
And I
don't
think
have those right now. And that's been a big change, right? So
I think having the networking events, in say, for example, each of my markets, I try to schedule my travel sometimes around some of those, industry networking events and try to attend them, because sometimes, you can make phone calls, you can send emails, but sometimes being able to actually rub elbows with somebody and shake a hand at one of the kind of, usually most of these networking events will have like a panel discussion, but beforehand they'll have like a half hour, an hour of kind of networking and business card exchange, and I find those very, very, very valuable. And not being able to do those right now has been a big void in part of kind of the way I approach business development.
yeah, that's great, guys. I think we're getting right into our next topic, and I'll let John, if he wants to weigh in. But we talk about the lack of, you guys have touched on the lack of network events and how great and fun these were before COVID. And Chris mentioned her PBSS, and Jeremy, we talked beforehand about your launch bio, but those have been the things that are really, for lack of a word, you're suffering from not having those events, right?
Yeah.
And maybe John, you
yeah.
can add in, and then we'll let Jeremy and Chris kind of round out our lack of networking and the impact.
I don't know much to add to it. I mean, the launch bio was a good event. You get that mix of a really good blend of people with very different backgrounds. There's the usual scientific presentation, but again, it's just that ability to just. And you just never know. You sort of meet a person, you get chatting, and it might just be one throwaway comment that basically registers with them, that the card exchange starts and things follow from there. Yeah, I don't know how quickly these will come back, but this is obviously, and so many people find these valuable. This is something that we'll all be looking forward to getting back those things back on the calendar.
Yeah, great discussion. We're going to let Chris kind of round out the COVID impact. We're going to switch topics slightly after this, not just about COVID impact, but around the networking, lack of travel. Last thoughts, Chris, and then Jeremy, you can give your last thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Well, I don't know if I have much more to add other than we have, we miss it. We miss seeing our customers. I think, you kind of go into business development if you're a bit of an extrovert maybe, and not being able to really meet people face to face is has been a bit of a challenge. I did though have a conversation with a customer, or actually a prospective local customer, and I think I made a comment like, "Oh gosh, it'd be nice to meet face to face with you." And and they made the comment that, hey, at least 2D, you get to see my face. Like, if we were meeting in person, we would both be wearing masks and sitting far apart. At least this sort of, like, their comment was, oh, at least we're a little bit closer. And I was like, oh, that's actually, a good point. So I think there are
Yeah.
some, pros that, the fact that we've all upped our technology at home to accommodate, you know, another form of meeting, even after we are able to get back on the road and meet with where the opportunity exists that we can meet face to face. Like, we'll probably use Teams and Zoom and other
Mhm.
those more
Yeah.
frequently.
You're saying it's the wave of the future, and thanks for sharing that story. I think it was kind of interesting perspective to say, hey, even if we were meeting for coffee, we'd have a mask on, and let's face it, Teams might be a better way today, right? So, Jeremy, I don't want to leave you out. Any
And,
last thoughts?
No,
and then,
I think we covered it pretty well. I would just say that that you mentioned Launch Bio. The last time I actually traveled, the very first week of March, I was actually with John, and we were traveling together to meet some clients and some prospective clients. And we went to one of the Launch Bio networking events, and it was really valuable. Met some really great people, kind of in the RTP area, that I've been able to kind of slowly kind of cultivate some relationships with. So, like I said before, I miss it because I think they're really, really valuable.
but that was also the week where we really saw things start to change. Where before, a couple of weeks beforehand, we'd also been out on the road where you just you'd made appointments, you'd visit customers. But this was the first one where we actually got a call in the car as we're driving to their facility to say, have any of you had been abroad in the last period? Have any of you had fevers in the couple of weeks beforehand? So there was already things starting to change. Then, obviously, quickly after that, things really stopped in terms of travel. So one question that I think we had on our sheet is, if we've obviously spent a lot of time thinking how we can do things differently. What have you seen in terms of customers doing things differently to help move their programs forward and their interactions with us forward?
Well, maybe I can take initial. Jeremy, you probably have some good thoughts on this too. What I've seen here, especially locally, like, real estate is pretty expensive around here. And while I think that everybody can agree that, having all of your employees in a building is really valuable from, like, a teamwork perspective and maybe a bit more efficient. But a lot of customers are really evaluating, like, how they're, like, what that, what those real estate needs are. And so I see a lot of them, considering going virtual, unless they have some wet lab space, but they're going virtual, regardless, especially for those, non-laboratory people. So, like, say they have, like, a discovery team that comes in and is in, they're still going to be on site. It's kind of like us,
Yep.
if you do your job from home, then you might consider doing that, for forever, moving forward, or at least, maybe coming in like once or twice a week. So the size of, the building that they need, and they're really reevaluating that. So, I mean, that's not really our business. The commercial real estate is not, what we tend to think about, but it has a huge impact on companies' bottom lines because buildings, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area, are really expensive.
Yeah, I think being in person, being on site somewhere, there's no question the impact that has on continuity, and building a team. But it is interesting to hear people talk about what the next steps as we start to get back to quote unquote normalcy. A lot of people may still continue to be able to work from home, as guidance. And so it'll definitely be interested to see how that paradigm kind of shifts. And some companies will, I think, open their arms a little bit more and adopt it. And I think some may not. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Maybe just one follow-up question because I think we kind of touched on impact of clients and how they're doing business. That was one of our topics. Can you share if people are like, is there a sense, and maybe this is a little bit more directed to Chris, but Jeremy, you're certainly welcome. Are they moving out of your territory and still working for a California-based company. And Jeremy, similar to you, do you see people, have you heard of any of that where like, hey, now that I can work from home, I'm moving, I don't know, not necessarily out of the state, but more rural or urban or whatever? Is there impact there?
Yeah, hugely. Like I have, so again, like just like businesses, and it's not just the pharma and biotech industry, but businesses all over in the Bay Area, real estate's expensive. So they're considering like what their footprint needs to be moving forward, in 2021 and beyond. Well, people that work for those companies are thinking the same thing. They're like, well, if I have to do my job from home, and maybe I live in a cramped San Francisco apartment with like 3 roommates, why don't I do this in Tahoe or move to Bozeman, Montana? And I've got friends like renting beach houses, in Hawaii that are just, so they're like, well, there's like two frames of thought, maybe like one, like, well, we've got the money and it doesn't matter where we live. So let's move somewhere really cool, right? So let's move to Hawaii or let's go to the beach or, um, like my friends are into fishing. So like they moved up to Bozeman, Montana, where there's lots of rivers and it's beautiful.
Well, you got some eclectic friends to go from Hawaii to Montana, but continue.
But then there's the other people that are like, I'm paying the same amount for my San Francisco tiny apartment with like lots of noise and, where my kids, I have a customer that lives in Oakland and God bless him. Like I can hear his kids in the background. I kind of like it because you get you get to see a little different side of customers because not everybody can wear their professional face all the time, but those people like they might consider moving somewhere a little bit more rural because that's not too far out, or maybe the same time zone, but just a little bit of space.
No, thanks, Chris. And we got one last topic, and that is like the work from home impact. But Jeremy, let's hear your thoughts on some of your clients and maybe what's happening just in your, are people moving out of, Indianapolis proper where you live?
I don't hear that as much because most of my territory, most of my region where I live personally, um, you can't move to the beach very easily. They're quite a far away, and the cost of living, in Indiana and in the Midwest and most of my region are much lower, than the coasts. And so I have not experienced that myself or in any of the conversations I've had. But I can definitely see how that would definitely be a consideration for people that live on the coasts or whatnot.
Yeah, I remember in the early days that Barbados was trying to make it easy for people to spend extended amounts of time in Barbados for telecommuting. And I think Hawaii's trying to do a similar thing now.
Jamaica too, John. Jamaica's big push. I see there's advertising. Come live in Jamaica during COVID. I've seen that here in Kansas City. But yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was allowed to say on that.
Yeah, there's one last topic here, and we'll let Jeremy weigh in first because I know he's got like a house full of kids and dogs and all that good stuff. So, as a business development director that has always worked from home, right? How are you being impacted with everybody home with you? Share a little bit about maybe your family and then maybe some clients.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. I've got 3 kids, 2 high schoolers, and 1 in elementary that are all full-time e-learning at home. So we've carved out little areas of the house for them to all my high schoolers have to be on Zoom calls from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. My wife works from home, so we have all these different workstations. I'm the one that's fortunate to have an existing a home office set up because I do work from home when I'm not on the road. And so, a lot of shut doors, a lot of mutes and yelling, can you make the dogs be quiet or, definitely some distractions. But the good thing is that you see that kind of across the board with clients and when you're on calls and you kind of hear background noise, some more prevalent than others. But it's people are doing the best they can and they're trying to still be productive and have productive conversations. So definitely been a learning experience, and we've all kind of evolved and learned kind of how to make the best of it over the last 9 months, spanning two school years, in the spring and then now the fall semester.
So before I let Chris weigh in, you got like one funny story you want to share, like for instance, I've had like cat noises that one sticks out for me, or one day at like I got someone that mows my lawn and you could hear that. You got one that sticks out for you in terms of
You
like,
know, you got
oh
the
crap
dogs and
moments.
the lawnmowers, but the other day my wife and I were having a discussion about punch bowls. What is considered a punch bowl, and the definition of it? And my daughter was on a Zoom call and apparently didn't have herself muted, and so the teacher wanted to try to weigh in on the discussion that me and my wife were having about what constitutes a punch bowl.
Oh, Jeremy, that so many levels of hilarity there. We're gonna let Chris weigh in.
Well, yeah, I went from working out of my home office by myself. I have 2 kids and a husband, and it's, in the mornings it was kiss, kiss, see you later, go enjoy, make money, go to school, learn some stuff, and then come home at 3. And now everybody's working here, and we've also had we've had to upgrade our Wi-Fi, because that turns out with one person you don't notice that it's terrible until you have 4 people trying to use the same internet bandwidth, and then you're like, oh, we have to upgrade this. So but there's been certainly some really positive things about it. Like, I love, like, my husband doesn't have to commute anymore, and so dinner is fairly regular, although I'm really missing my dinners out. Like, we went to dinner the other day, like at an outdoor restaurant, and I'm like, oh, this is really nice.
We all missed that, but go ahead, John
Yeah.
Perkins, let us know your thoughts. Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree on missing the food. I mean, we find both my wife and I have jobs where we travelled quite a lot, and it just takes like the odd photo, the odd book, the odd dish when you're just online to really sort of get the pangs going. God, I really wish I could travel again and get out there.
Yeah, you bet. So, guys, we got a couple more topics, but this has been a very lively discussion. Appreciate you guys joining us. So, the last one, not the last one, the next topic is, what are our thoughts on return on investment on virtual conferences in 2020? Maybe, Chris, I know we participated in one together. I think I did one with Jeremy too, but Chris, why don't you share with us how that all went in terms of
Yeah,
virtual conferences?
I think the big conferences, so like for us, big conferences are AAPS, which is now PharmSci 360, and WRIB. Those bigger conferences where you generally have like multiple tracks and people going from, this room to this room, and like the meeting, the interaction, the social interaction was like around those coffee breaks and things like that. And big booth halls, where we would have a table or a 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 booth set up. Those are really hard. Like, it's really hard to do those virtually. Conference organizers are really trying to like make it attractive for people to actually sign up, and so they're saying, our content's going to be available for months and months and months after the conference is over. So that just means that there's no sense of immediacy or urgency to actually go to that, those 3 days or 5 days, however long the conference is going to be. And so from like a business, like trying to develop new relationships and meet new people, the ROI is just terrible. I mentioned PBSS a little bit ago, and PBSS has gone virtual, and they've done some symposiums that are generally about half-day symposiums or maybe 2 or 3 hours. And those have been much better, just because it's single track. And there's no like promise to have the portals open for several months. And so the people that do show up and, enjoy the content. And there is still no like networking component to it where you can like, there's no speed networking or something like that. I wish they could do that, but.
And so, Jeremy, if you have anything to add, you can. Otherwise, we can talk about what you think of 2021. You got something to add, Jeremy, into that?
Yeah, I think that Chris hit most of it. I think for the larger conferences, they've been more challenging because the content's available longer. And so people are going to kind of review that content at their own convenience. I will say that there's an organization here in Indianapolis, or Indiana rather, called BioCrossroads that has done some virtual kind of roundtable discussions on certain topics within the industry, and there's been a lot more kind of participation, active. They're kind of live events, so those have actually been very, very beneficial, and I've had some follow up with a couple of some of the kind of roundtable members. So that's been, so some of the smaller scale. I think virtual events have been a little more impactful, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's great, guys. And I think for the sake of time, I feel like we covered it. I think you really touched on what the 2021 will be. It seems like we might attend these larger conferences, but we know they're not going to have quite the impact. But those smaller ones that you're finding, they seem to be where it's at. Do I have that right? Is that where you guys are going to be focused for 2021?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that 2021. I don't expect much to change in the early half of the year, but hopefully we might see some conferences become. You maybe get physical conferences in the tail end of the year, which might impact Farm 360 and EBF, which would be great if those could go forward in a non-virtual format.
So, guys, we're thanks again for a lively discussion today. We're working our way through the main portion here. Any last thoughts on plans for 2021 in terms of travel and virtual conferences? Chris, why don't you go first, and then Jeremy?
I was just going to say, John and I were going to go to the EBF, the European Bioanalytical Forum, which is in Barcelona for the first time. I was, this year, and our boondoggling trip is no, just kidding. We weren't going to boondoggle. We were just going to.
No, you were. You were going to pack me with you. You just didn't know it yet. Yo puedo hablar español muy bien. But go ahead, Chris.
Oh, we're hoping that comes back in 2021 in a live format. Yeah.
Yes. So just as a complete aside, I ended up online last night ordering boccheronis, which are a marinated anchovies, which I would normally be eating this time of year at EBF, at the tapas restaurants, and I just decided I had to have some just to keep them going.
Pretty sure Jeremy's cringing like I am about what you just said, but God bless you, John.
Yeah.
God bless you. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Could have said it better myself. Yeah, the travel plans. Obviously, I can't wait to be in a position to get back out on the road. But it's a two-way street. I can be ready to get back on the road at point A. But if clients are still uncomfortable or are not allowing visitors or something like that, it might still pose challenges through, I would say, at least the middle part of next year. So we'll see, and we'll continue to try to be creative in how we engage with our clients.
Yeah, we'll monitor it, and you can obviously guarantee whatever works for our clients, we'll do to help them.
Right.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. A great discussion. That wraps up our main portion. I think for the sake of time, we have normally we do the news and feedback, but we're running a little short, and we have this Amy E who gave us at least 10 questions here that are fantastic. But if it's okay with our producers, I'd like to put our guests on the hot seat. Shelve that for now. We want to go through the hot seat and then find out a little bit about our weekend plans. Jeremy, you okay with that?
That sounds great.
Okay, so Amy E, we know you're out there. We're excited to answer your questions, but you're going to have to wait one more week. So who wants to go to the hot seat first?
I'm in.
All right, Jeremy raised his hand first. So I'll ask the first question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said there's no prizes.
Don't tell him that. He's going to get some famous Barcelona marinated sardines, right? Is that what you said you ordered?
So Jeremy, competitive, but yeah.
Jeremy, the first question, and then we'll go back and forth. What's your favorite podcast?
And I was anticipating that question. It's such a hard one. The easy answer is the ones that our bosses were the featured guests. So episode 18 with Amy Mize is an easy answer. But for me, who I've been with the company for a year and a half, I'm still consider myself learning as far as the bioanalytical side of this business. So I really enjoyed the 3-part series that you guys had on the role of bioanalytical in the development process. So I think it was episodes 10, 11, and I think 13 really kind of helped, because I listened to the episodes really as a learning experience for myself, as well as you guys kind of dive into the weeds a little bit on these different topics. So they've been really helpful for me to learn and even get up to speed faster.
Fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic to hear, Jeremy. Thanks for that feedback there. Chris, you're up next on what's your favorite podcast?
So my favorite podcast, the early ones were really great. You guys talked a lot about Madagascar and your sauce recipes and things you were making in the kitchen. But the most educational for me was your most recent one, the episode, I think it was 28, on your vaccines. You really summarized the vaccines nicely, and all the ones in development. And I think for any of our listeners out there or your listeners out there that don't have a background in drug development, you really kind of talked about how they work, and like that was really educational.
Thanks. Okay. John, you want to take us through the next round here?
So the next, who wants to, again, we may as well stick with the same sequence, but what's your favorite dish to make and or eat?
So favorite and only would probably be the same, because I'm not the best of cooks, but I can make some mean enchiladas.
Chicken or beef? Which way? How are you going there? Or all the above?
Beef is my specialty.
And what can you elaborate a little bit? Because you caught me off guard with enchiladas. I was not expecting that. So how did you get to enchiladas, Jeremy? What makes it so special?
Because I can make it. That's what makes it so special. I've been told by my kids that they're good, so that's top shelf right there. But my wife had easy weeknight, dinners or meals, and we've been making them for years, and I've kind of learned how to kind of make them on my own. So, like I said, it's not even so much favorite, but it's only.
Yeah, well, my wife's favorite is enchiladas as well, and it's because she loves Mexican food a lot, and it's the only real dish she makes for us. So, Jeremy, you have something in common with my wife, Renee. Interesting.
Like it.
Chris, same question to you.
Okay. Well, for me, so I do like to cook, and I've got a bunch of recipes that I like to cook for like dinner and stuff. But during COVID, I am not alone in this, but I started my own sourdough starter, which, as a microbiologist by training, like I really geeked out on, the bacteria and the fungi, to like how they work together symbiotically to make a sourdough starter. So I've been perfecting my sourdough recipe, and that's been super fun and delicious.
I bet. No surprise there. It's all the rage these days. And I think
Right?
you're in the
I
I'll call it the sourdough capital of the world out there in the Bay Area, right? So next question, and then we'll ask you about your weekend plans. What's your favorite adult beverage?
I'd have to go either bourbon on the rocks, or during a certain part of the year, Oktoberfest. I absolutely love Oktoberfest beer, but you can only get it for a really short period of time. So I try to take full advantage during that period, and then drink bourbon mostly outside of that.
Yeah, the irony is you can only get Oktoberfest in September, right, Jeremy? You can only get it in October.
Right.
You and my husband both, he tends to stock up. So we have like cases and cases, and then, come around this time of year or into January, he's like, I'm down to my last one.
Yeah.
And he's very sad about it. So for me, during COVID, we've got a beautiful liquor cabinet, and I've been sort of like working my way through it, like making some creative cocktails, but I always come back to a good old fashioned Manhattan.
Ooh, that's a good one, Chris. Caught me a little surprised to hear that.
So on the subject of liquor cabinets, obviously when my wife's parents passed away, we got a lot of the furniture from their house came over here. One of the things particularly is a liquor cabinet they had in the house. I don't know how many years, but every time you open the doors, you get this wonderful waft of all these sort of flavors that have sort of it's assimilated into the cabinet and slowly are seeping back out. But when my kids come home, like my eldest son is coming home for Christmas, he's going to go to that cabinet to open the door just to sort of drown in the scent of what was his grandparents' house. It's just a fantastic little piece of furniture.
It's like it's a cask, blend.
Yeah.
You're saying, right?
A little
That's
time
awesome.
capsule
Poetic.
sitting in the room.
No, go ahead, Jeremy. R, what were you going to say? Sorry, I kind of cut you
No, I
off.
said that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I wish all my furniture smelled like a bouquet of alcohol. I
Right.
guess I don't know. Maybe I'd be more during COVID times. I'd take it, right?
Yeah, most of ours does because of spilling it,
Yeah.
With cat knock over glasses and things like that.
Yeah, so this has been wonderful. Thanks for having you guys. Really appreciate it. We're kind of passing up on the hour here. So any last thoughts? I guess the last thoughts are weekend plans. I got some Christmas shopping to do. I don't want to say too much about that, but there's some things I like to get the wife that are local to KC, some artistry and some ornaments and things like that. She knows it's coming, but that's always a fun time to shop for me. So I'll go down to one of our more famous shopping areas and look around for some cool trinkets and knickknacks and whatnot. So that's the big event for me. I'm like the rest of you. I'm very much avoiding any sort of restaurants. I'm really over the last few weeks have really cut down going anywhere, although Kansas City's wide open and traffic is flowing and it's weird. But me, I'm trying to really mitigate where I'm going.
So, Jeremy, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Likewise, kind of sticking close to home, doing most of the shopping that I need to do online for the most part. But I am excited that today our Christmas cards should arrive, and that's something that I always enjoy every year. Is getting the Christmas cards, stuffing them, addressing them, sending them out, and especially in a year like this where you haven't been able to see people nearly as much as we wanted. I'm even more excited just to kind of, give a little glimpse of what's happened a little bit in the Rochford family this year.
I think you're putting me to shame. We have not even ordered our Christmas cards yet, so we might be sending out New Year's cards. But I think for us around here, we're trying to buy some local stuff because the online, like Amazon, Amazon's going to be just fine. And don't get me wrong, we'll still buy stuff for Christmas on Amazon, but we're trying to find the local shops that we really want to help stay in business. And so it takes a little bit extra time, but that's probably what we'll be doing a bit of this weekend.
Yeah, Chris, I echo that. I hope I should have probably caveated some of the reason I like that local stuff too. It's good.
Yeah, my approach is if I can't get it locally, I'll try and find small providers, and even if I see something that looks interesting, I'll check out details of it on Amazon. But then I will actually go and look and find either the first-hand supplier or other smaller companies where I might be able to get it for a comparable price. For me this weekend we've actually got most of our Christmas shopping out of the way. We're just waiting for things to arrive. So for us, it's we're getting the tree this weekend, and then it will be decorating and things beyond that. That should be a really nice sort of family get together to do that.
Wow, no tree yet. We got our tree after Thanksgiving, so you're good. But at least you're going to get it. I think it's a wonderful event. We tried to cut one down this year, but they were all like 6 feet, and we wanted something a little bigger. So
just as a bit of a background, when I grew up, my parents never decorated a tree until Christmas Eve. So it's like this. We're not as far forward as like Thanksgiving, but we're still significantly more advanced than my parents were doing it.
Yeah, and as am I. I think my family waited till my mom hated losing the space in the house with 4 kids, so it was like 2 weeks, maybe a week before, a similar, not Christmas Eve, but similar time frame. And then as for Christmas cards, Chris, ours came. Not Chris, but Jeremy. Ours came yesterday, and you're right. It's a really exciting thing to see that. So we feel a little behind. I can't imagine Chris is right. She's going to have New Year's cards because we've got. It seems like there's 2 things that COVID's definitely done. There's way more Christmas lights up than I've ever seen. I mean, unbelievable amounts of that. And Christmas cards are rolling in sooner than ever. So people got time on their hands. And I'll let everybody comment on that, and then we're going to have to call it a show.
Yeah, we're hopeless on Christmas cards. Every year we always do it late, if we do it at all, and this year seems to be no exception. So I've got to try and figure out how we catch up on that.
My wife takes our holiday decorating and tree and all the other decorations around the house very, very seriously. And one of the things that she made me promise in like April was that we could decorate earlier this year. So actually on Thanksgiving, because we weren't doing anything else like we normally would, we actually started to get our holiday decorations out and up and moving. So different year, different plan.
Absolutely.
Okay, you guys are off the hot seat. So thanks very much, and everybody have a great end of your week. And
Wait, before we go, Dom.
sure.
So I've got a surprise for you. I'd like to reverse the hot seat. Before
Yes.
knowing that I was coming on this podcast, I asked a couple. I don't know if you know this, but you have a couple of super fans within my own family, and I solicited some questions from those people, and so I've got a couple of questions for you guys.
Awesome.
Are you ready? All right. The first one is a question from my almost 10-year-old daughter, Josie. And she has questions around the vaccine and animals. So her question is, are we making a vaccine for animals, or can they take our vaccine? And I thought, since this is actually a really good question, since it's, we know that SARS-CoV-2 is xenotropic, and it came from animals and humans, and like other animals. We recently went to a outdoor zoo where one of the zoo workers had made the comment that the giraffes could actually get the virus from us, and I think that got her brain working in the juices. So are we making a vaccine for animals, or can they take the one that is developed for humans?
John, I feel like you've read about this. Maybe you want to jump in first, and then I can answer some of it.
I honestly haven't even thought about this. I honestly have no idea. I mean, I know they've talked about possibility cats getting it.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, John. Right? That's an article we touched on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer it, to be honest. I mean, I think it's a case of if we get to the stage where we vaccinated people, and I mean, I think if there's proof that animals could suffer from it, possibly it could be administered. I don't know, Dominic. I'm bound to your expertise here.
Well, we did read about, so there is cat work, as you mentioned. And what they're doing is they're developing the vaccines in cats, and it's effective in cats, and then it's moving into the humans. So first, what a you question from your 10-year-old. You should be proud of her. This is a great question. So the short answer is absolutely. The answer is yes, but the focus is on the human. So when they do the preclinical studies and there's efficacy in the animals, they're moving on from there. I haven't heard of anybody developing it, and maybe we could even, now she's even challenging us. I don't know of the animal health companies that are working on COVID vaccines for domestic animals. But if it does become a problem, then there's a solution there. I haven't heard of a high infectivity rate among animals, because they definitely have, they're just kind of dirtier, and that might help them against the vaccine, against the virus. So I hope that answered you, Chris.
Well, I hope it does too. I'll ask her. I'll share this with her and ask her. She gave me a bunch of questions, but I thought that was the hardest one.
What a great one! It's a really good question.
Yes, it's something I hadn't thought about, but yeah, really, really impressive.
Yeah. One of my parents also asked, if Moderna is approved, how many doses are earmarked for the U.S.? Do you guys know?
John, you might know a little more. What I know is I think their supply chain is lower, their manufacturing is lower. So I felt like the number was like 3 million. Is that right, or am I wrong there?
I honestly don't know, but I mean they were financed by the Operation Warp Speed, so I suspect that there's going to be a large contingent of their product, they're probably earmarked for the US, but I haven't looked at details on that.
I can't remember if it was 3 or 30 that they had made. It was a lower number, but another really good question. They are definitely one of the challenges with Moderna is they're a smaller player and they are having some how do I say it manufacturing challenges due to that. Like, really the great thing about what happened with the vaccine is they started manufacturing it, 6, 8, 10 months ago, so that we have these stockpiles, and they just didn't have the horsepower or the bandwidth of say
But
Pfizer and others.
but they have been partnering with contract manufacturers to try and address that. So that, I mean, it is coming.
Yeah, they're going to vamp up, but I feel like their stockpiles less than say
Yeah,
Pfizer,
exactly.
BioNTech. But
Yeah. Yep.
wow, these are some goodies. Jeremy, you got your kids asking you any questions, or you want Chris to continue?
No, that's it. I'm embarrassed that I didn't think about that, but
No.
that was genius.
Don't be
Flipping the table was
embarrassed.
genius.
Okay,
Right.
well, I'll throw you one more, and it's one from my mother Judy, who has listened to a lot of your episodes, and particularly she always seems to comment about John's accent to me. So you might have another extra super fan out there, but she wanted me to ask, what do you think life will look like once the vaccines are available?
It's a good one. I'll let you go first, John. That's a good one, though.
I mean, I think once they're available, it's not going to change very much at all once it's available because we're there right now. I think it depends on the uptake of people. I mean, it's really interesting that I read an article in BuzzFeed today because I was actually talking to my wife about this separately about the countries where they've effectively controlled COVID without vaccinations. So you're talking Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, and a number of the South Asian countries. And people, there's some distance controls, but mostly they're continuing life as usual. That's somewhere where we need to be. And if the vaccine, it'll be a mechanism to get us there, but it's still going to be, to me, it'll be a long-term process because the rollout of the vaccine can't be immediate. We're talking months for us to get to that kind of position, but it still depends on a significant uptake of the vaccine, and we still got a significant portion of the population are saying I don't want that in my body. I mean, it's so to here we have to have the vaccine available, we have to have the education of people to get them to take it to whereby we can actually get to the point where we can start pulling back from the social distancing and the other controls that we've implemented to try and keep it under control.
Yeah, so maybe I'll add a little bit when you talk about those other countries and how they're getting back to normal. Their normal is not our normal. So that the normal will be a mask and social distancing through at least 2021 and probably 2022. I'll give a shorter answer. So even if the vaccine comes out, I would expect we should be wearing a mask and distancing through 2021 just because it's look, it's not a stealing of your freedom. This is to be respectful of people around you. Do I think we could ever have a day where we're not wearing a mask? Yes. Are we moving away from shaking hands and hugging? Possibly. Unfortunately, that could be what happens. So maybe a shorter answer there, but I think it's a great question of what life will look like. But I feel like the days, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, rocking out with 15,000 of your favorite friends at a concert hall is maybe something that you'll be every other seat and it'll be 8,000. But those days are not any time in 2021.
Fear. Because they're having concerts in Australia. But yes, I
But
agree
it's
with you.
not full, right? I mean, there's no
Yeah,
pit
yeah.
and all this. They are. Oh,
Yes.
oh, I don't know. Okay, well, I hope I'm good. I hope I'm wrong. I know there's, here the NFL's letting like 20% in, some, not all.
Yeah, and in the UK, you got crowds of 2,000 are
Yep.
allowed in sports events. Yeah, I mean, I'm basically they're much closer to where we want to be. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
So and hopefully the vaccine will help us get there.
I hope so. I mean, I hope by 2022 we're able to, avoid the mask and maybe kind of get back to some normal. But I would expect restaurants to be, especially in maybe some more populated areas that it's just going to be the new norm. So, but I do think we'll see opening up and kids back in school and all that, though. But you
Sure.
might be wearing a mask.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the questions, Chris, and thank you very much, Jeremy, for your time too. I think we really need to wrap up, and that's it for this week. And then we look forward to doing this again next week. Do you have anything more to add, Dominic?
Yeah, just next week's topic, right? We didn't really touch on that yet. So next week we are going to talk about
how are manufacturers helping out with COVID? So there's a Fierce Biotech had a listing of the top 10 manufacturers helping with COVID. So we'd like to go through a discussion of some of that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool topic of how these manufacturers are, quickly pivoting into fighting COVID. So it'll be a nice topic to kind of podcast 31 that will be. And I'll just say thank you both for joining us on podcast number 30. It's been a pleasure. And any last thoughts or last words before we, continue on with our Thursday and move on from here?
No, it was really fun to be a part of it. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
All right, that does it for podcast number 30. Take care, everybody.